The 50-30-20 rule is everywhere. Your bank app recommends it, Reddit's personal finance wiki leads with it, every how to budget video on YouTube walks you through it like gospel. 50% of your income goes to needs, 30% to wants, 20% to savings. Simple, clean, and quietly broken for most people earning under 6 figures in 2025. Here's what nobody mentions when they hand you this rule. It was built for a world that no longer exists. Here's the thing about the 50-30-20 rule. It wasn't invented by a bank. It wasn't invented by a financial advisor trying to sell you something. It came from a 2005 book by Elizabeth Warren, yes, that Elizabeth Warren, called All Your Worth. The framework made sense in 2005. Housing was cheaper relative to income. Healthcare wasn't eating 10 to 15% of your paycheck before you spent $1. Student loans were a fraction of what they are now. Warren built this rule for a median American household at a specific moment in time. That moment is gone, and yet the rule stayed. Got passed down, got simplified, got turned into a pie chart that millions of people now measure themselves against every month. This isn't about you being bad with money. It's about the fact that you're using a 20-year-old map to navigate a completely different city. Let's run the actual numbers. Median household income in the US right now is around $75,000 a year. That's about $6,250 a month before taxes. After taxes, call it roughly $4,800 take home, depending on your state. The 50-30-20 rule says $2,400 should cover your needs. Now let's talk about rent. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the US is over $1,500 a month. In any major city, New York, LA, Austin, Denver, Seattle, you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000. That's one line item before utilities, before groceries, before the car payment you need, because public transit isn't an option where you live. And in a minute, I'll show you what actually happens to the math when you plug in real 2025 numbers, because it breaks the rule completely. Here's why the 50-30-20 rule survived this long, even though it stopped working. It feels like it should be your fault. When the rule says 50% for needs and your needs are eating 65%, the obvious conclusion is that you're doing something wrong. You're overspending, you chose the wrong city, you should have picked a different career. The rule becomes a mirror that reflects failure back at you. What it doesn't reflect is the structural shift that happened between 2005 and now. Rent-to-income ratio has risen dramatically over the past 2 decades. Healthcare premiums have outpaced wage growth consistently. Student loan balances have roughly tripled. The rule didn't account for any of that because it was written before any of that happened at this scale. The most common response when 50-30-20 doesn't work? Cut the 30%. Eliminate the wants, cancel Netflix, stop going out, eat rice and beans. Try to force the formula to balance by making yourself miserable in the middle column. This is where budgets die. Not because people lack discipline, because the 30%, the wants, is usually the only flexible part of a budget. That's already being crushed by fixed costs. When you cut all of it, you're not building a sustainable system. You're white-knuckling a spreadsheet until you snap, and then you feel like you failed. Again, here's the reframe. The 50-30-20 rule was never meant to be aspirational math. It was meant to be a diagnostic tool. Warren's original point was, if your needs are consuming more than 50%, that's a signal. Not a personal failure, but a signal that something structural in your financial life needs to change. A bigger income, a different housing situation, a different city, but somewhere between 2005 and now, the diagnostic became the prescription. And the prescription became the standard everyone measures themselves against. The actual insight, the one that gets lost, is this. Percentages are only useful if your income is in the right range for those percentages to work. If your take-home is $3,500 a month and rent is $1,600, that's already 46% of your income. Before food, before anything, the 50-30-20 framework doesn't apply to you. It's not a tool you can use, it's noise. So what actually works instead? Start with a different question. Not, how do I hit 20% savings? But, What is the minimum my fixed costs need to be for savings to be possible at all? Work the math backwards. Take your actual take-home, subtract your true fixed costs, rent, utilities, insurance, minimum loan payments, transportation. Whatever's left is the real number you're working with. If that number is small, the path forward isn't better budgeting. It's increasing income, decreasing fixed costs, or both. Budgeting harder on a number that's already too small just makes you efficient at being stuck. The 20% savings target isn't wrong. It's just a destination, not a starting point. And the 50-30-20 map was never going to get you there if your fixed costs are already above 50%. Here's the question worth sitting with. Is your budget failing because of your habits or because the baseline costs in your life are structurally too high for any budget to fix? That's the video we're doing next, because the answer changes everything about what move you make from here. If this landed, you know what to do.